The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
The UFC is back in sunny Las Vegas with a UFC Fight Night this weekend. Neil Magny taking on Carlos Prates, the up-and-comer Brazilian. Carlos Prates looking for his biggest win to date against the ranked Neil Magny, and we are here to talk about it from a gambling perspective. And you know what, Ian, after a few years, that intro still pops, man. I love doing this show with you, UFC Best Bets. I love talking about the fights and putting money in people's pockets. We're going to be doing that again this weekend. But first off, let's take a look back at last weekend at Edmonton. How did we do at the window with that main event between Brandon Moreno? And who? Why am I blanking now? Where did Brandon Moreno fight, Ian? Tell me who Brandon Moreno fought and tell me who he won money against.
It doesn't matter. We picked him to win, and he beat Amir Albazi. That's what I'm here for, bro. I got you. So Brandon Moreno looked absolutely fantastic. He won all 5 rounds. He made Albazi look like he's been out for a while. We did go 3-3 on the best bets. The 2 main losses that killed me was the Kyle Machado by split decision and Rose Namajunas. You were up 2-0. How do you blow that? But we hit Parker's parlay, and now we're back.
All right, so yes, we are back with this UFC Fight Night. Neil Magny taking on Carlos Prates. It is a 5-fight main card. Odds there presented to you by ESPN BET. It takes place at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on ESPN Plus. And yes, my sincere apologies to Amir Albazi. Didn't mean to forget about him there. But Brandon Moreno with a performance for the ages, one of the best of his career there in Edmonton. So let's talk about Neil Magny taking on Carlos Prates. You know, for a long time, Neil Magny was sort of that dog that it was great to bet on, man. He has a long history of winning at plus money. He actually did it this year, plus 300 against Mike Malott. But prior to that, it had been a little while for him. His last win as an underdog had been back in 2021. He's coming in as a big one here. Carlos Prates minus 850. That is the biggest line that he's had thus far in the UFC. So I can't imagine there's much value on Carlos Prates here. But what do you see here at this lopsided line in the main event?
I think it has to do a lot with Prates being that up-and-comer, just absolutely getting these knockouts. He's looking fantastic. The team he fights with, the Fight Nerds, captained by Caio Bahaio, he just looked really good and better each time. And Neil Magny is that welterweight litmus test. You want to get to that top 15, top 12, top 10, you got to go through Magny. Now, Magny's coming off a knockout loss to Morales, and Prates just keeps looking better. Now, Brett, I did find some value somewhere here. I'm going to go with Prates in over 1.5 rounds. Other than one of his fights, Prates he takes his time. Sometimes he's really a little bit slower early on, but when he picks it up, and especially in his last fight, happened in the second round here, I expect Magny to come out and try to really close the distance, turn this into a little bit of a jockey for position, wrestling against the cage, and try to really close the distance to avoid that striking ability of Prates. If he does that, he can drain the clock. It may take Prates a little bit of time to get that distance range going in someone, and Magny is a crafty veteran. A lot of the times that we have bet on a Magny fight, it's been that over 1.5 rounds, and we've done well here. I think Prates does win, but I believe minus 110. Prates at over 1.5 rounds, that's what we're going with this week.
Yeah, I think that's a heck of a find because at minus 850, I mean, this to me seems like an absurd line. I mean, Prates has not been a 3-1 favorite over anybody so far in the UFC. Now, all of a sudden, he's minus 850 against Neil Magny. I get it, but obviously can't bet it. I wouldn't even throw it on a parlay or anything like that. So nice find of the Prates and over 1.5. Let's go to 135 pounds. It's Ricky Turcios taking on Bernard Sopi. Sopi coming in as a pretty big favorite himself, minus 380 against Turcios. What do you got to say about this bantamweight fight?
Man, Turcios is a lot of fun. You know, he's pretty durable for the most part. We saw him lose to Rojas Jr. by sub, but he's going to be aggressive. He's going to fight. And Sopi looked really good until that flying knee by Loke Dog on the Contender Series. I mean, good cardio, good striking, except he was a little too willing to take one, to give one, and at a certain point, that flying knee just sent him to a place that doesn't exist. Now, Turcios doesn't possess that same power, in my opinion, as Oliveira does. I think Sopi, he's got to learn from that last fight. If not, then Turcios is going to put on a menacing pace. For me, Sopi would win over 2.5 rounds or take Sopi by decision. To me, that's the only way to justify value in that fight betting on him.
All right, so we're taking another over there in the co-main event. Let's go through the rest of this 5-fight main card on ESPN Plus. We go to Gerald Meerschaert versus Reinier de Ridder. De Ridder also coming in as a pretty big favorite. A lot of big favorites on this this main card. Minus 340. How are you playing this one?
We're going to go de Ridder in over 1.5 rounds. I probably sound like a broken record here, but it gets that number way down. If you guys don't know de Ridder, those 2 losses are to one guy, Anatoly Malkin, who's the triple champ at ONE FC. De Ridder is so good everywhere. Where he's going to be better than Meerschaert is the striking. I'm banking on Meerschaert's durability to get to rounds 2 and 3, where he usually gets those come-from-behind submissions here. Brett, not against de Ridder. De Ridder too good, too smart. Give me de Ridder in over 1.5 rounds.
I mean, keeping right with this theme of big favorites, it is Jillian Robertson at minus 425 taking on Luana Pinheiro. You got a long shot prop on this one.
I do. We're going to go Jillian Robertson to win by sub in round 2, and I'm also going to take her to win inside the distance. Luana Pinheiro wants a good prospect. In my opinion, she's done. No heart or IQ, and Robertson's been an absolute savage in this weight class. Dean Thomas told me we're going for the bonus. Robertson wants a sub. I believe her. Inside the distance for the savage one. Let's get it.
All right, and then rounding out the main card is Mansour Abdul Manlik taking on Dusko Todorovic and minus 400 for Manlik. And you like a prop of the night here as well.
I do. Malic to win by TK or KO. We know Todorovic has no chin, lost multiple times in round 1, and Malic is an absolute beast. I'm also liking under 1.5 rounds here. Pay attention to this kid. He is a blue chip prospect in every sense of the word, and it starts with this Saturday.
All right, so that takes you through our main card on ESPN Plus, but of course there are fights prior to that. Those are also on ESPN Plus. Those take place at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. Let's run through the prelim picks on ESPN Plus on Saturday over there at the Apex.
Yep, we're going to go with Gomez by decision, who also is going to be one of my props of the night. Carolina Kavachevich, very durable, good veteran here. I think Gomez's power, she's learned to control that. She's been more disciplined. I think she gets it done over the course of 3 rounds. Next up, we're going to go Gaston Bolaños, and we're going to go Romias. Over 1.5 rounds here. Romias coming off the Contender Series, where he won by decision. Bolaños, very durable, tough guy. If Romias gets a finish, I think it'll be towards the end of round 2, late round 3 with a sub. We're going to go Dos Santos. He's minus 500 here against Scroggin. Look, unless you could find a prop for him to win by decision or sub, I would lay off that one. I'm going to go Buffalo Chuck Radke over here. I think Salmonsberger's really lost his mojo. If he doesn't land that right hand, Radke could wrestle him, possibly get a sub. I'm okay with that minus 170. Any higher, don't love the price, but we think he gets it done. Blackshear over 2.5 rounds over Cody Stamen. We're going to go Chicoli is the underdog here. Gore has not fought in 2 years, only 4-2. Chicoli just fought the Pirate and Shower Bullet. I think he's a good underdog. And last but not least, Mullins to win by decision.
All right, so there are your prelim picks for UFC Fight Night. How about Parker's Parlay, which I will remind you did hit last week. It's been hot all year. Where are we going with Parker's Parlay on Saturday?
I did, and I know you said you wouldn't even throw Prates in there, but I'm going to do it just to get a little bit more money on this. And Brett, if you were to take him out and replace him with Dos Santos, you get better odds. I don't hate that either. I think all 4 of these favorites get it done. Plus money. You don't have to worry about the method of victory. So Prates, de Ridder, Robertson, Malic. That's going to be Parker's Parlay of the week. Let's go for 2 in a row.
All right, there's your Parker's Parlay. And now one of my favorite parts of the show, the long shot parlay for this weekend.
Brett, I'm going to be very honest here. I think this is extremely hittable. Jillian Robertson by sub at plus 110. Tricoli, I think the underdog is very live here. 6'5", going against a 6-foot Trajan Gore. Gore hasn't fought in 2 years. And last but not least, Romney has to win by submission over Bolaños at plus 1170. I think that 3-legger is very live and very doable.
Yep, I like it. Maybe not your 30-1 payout as you haven't had in other weeks, but maybe a little bit more manager there, and still at 11-1 on the long shot. And then, of course, our best bets for UFC Fight Night.
Give me de Ridder over GM3 to win and over 1.5 rounds. If he gets the finish, I think it'll be later on. We just need GM3 to survive that striking of de Ridder. Jillian Robertson, she's on a mission here. Pinheiro's been finished. Robertson is constantly going for subs. I think she'll get a dominant top position early to get that. And minus 135, let's go. Malik Todorovic under 1.5 rounds. Bolaños Rami's over 1.5. I think Rami is coming off the Contender Series. A lot of guys, when they first get into the UFC, a little hesitant. Bright lights, over 1.5. And last but not least, Buffalo Chuck. I think he beats Selmisberger. And that's going to be our best bets for the week, my man.
Buffalo Chuck, what a heck of a nickname there to wrap us up on the best bets. Happy 100 Apex to you, Ian, and to all of our viewers. It's the 100th card at the Apex, and I think it's very fitting that they're actually in the process of adding more seats to the Apex so more people can show up and watch those Apex cards. It is going to be the 100th one, led by Neil Magny taking on Carlos Prates. Thank you for watching, and make sure you tune in next week. We will be in New York City for UFC 309. Going to be a great show. Until then, enjoy the fights this weekend. See you next week.